Community Viewpoint.
And welcome once again to Community Viewpoint. I'm John Pawlak, your host for this segment, and hope you're indoors and in the air conditioning because it's very hot this weekend. And make sure you're drinking a lot of water and make sure you're hydrated. We have an exciting show today, a very interesting show. Today we have with us a local merchant, Marty Greenfield. Marty is a jeweler.
Yes.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
And he has an address, but you'll never remember where it is because I don't. He's right next door to the Taco Bell. It's Marty Greenfield Jewelry.
Correct.
And but that's not what we're here to talk about today. We're talking about the number 112. Now, why would that be important to you, Marty?
Well, I am called the 112, or number 112. Baxter Laboratories did a research program that was supposed to be 444 patients.
And you were a patient with them for what reason?
Stem cell research.
And what happened to you to become a patient? You had a heart attack, right?
Yeah, I've had open heart surgery at the age of 41.
Wow, oh my goodness.
Yeah, and I've had 9 total heart attacks in my life.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, wow.
Yeah, 9 heart attacks. And my last heart attack in 2013 was significant. And when I went to the doctor here, who was working for a group out of Las Vegas, mm-hmm. He had said to me I only had 2 to 5 years to live.
Oh, that's great, yeah.
And that there was no more help for me whatsoever, none whatsoever. Las Vegas had exhausted all the medical ways to accommodate my condition. Mm-hmm. And of course, in Pahrump, there was nothing they could do for me.
No.
And consequently, I went into a pity party for 4 months.
Oh.
You know, when you hear you got 2 to 5 years to live.
Yeah, that does. Yeah, so what are you going to do? Yeah.
What are you going to do?
Yeah.
Okay. They said that I can get on a list for a transplant. And I knew nothing about transplants other than what I've read. Mm-hmm. And finally, after 4 months, I went to my head cardiologist in Las Vegas, and I said to her openly, she said, "Marty, nice to see you." She said, "What brings you in today?" I said, "Give me 2 names anywhere in the world. Not in the country. I'll take anywhere in the world. If I don't have the money to go, I'll borrow the money. Just find me 2 people that might be able to help me." She reiterated again that, you know, in Las Vegas, everything medically they were able to do, could do, they've done. Mm-hmm. And now my left side was almost completely shut down. My left arteries, the LADA artery was the left arterial descending artery, was also shot. And I had now 5 to 7 more blockages, but they couldn't get the instruments in to accommodate it. I was not qualified for a stent, nor am I qualified for open heart surgery or angioplasty.
Wow.
Yeah. If they did a bypass on me, which is very common in the medical field for hearts, mm-hmm. It was like taking Route 15 with all the lanes completely across and putting it in on Calvada and bypassing it into Calvada Road. You can't do it. It'll explode. And obviously, my whole artery would blow up and I would die. Being said, I said, okay, so give me 2 names. And she gave me 2. She gave me one at UCLA and one at Scripps, which is Southern California Research Institute. Okay. And I flipped a coin and we went to UCLA. And ironically, I made the appointment figuring how long will it take? And I had an appointment in 2.5 weeks.
Really?
With the cardiology department at UCLA. And a Dr. Jonathan Tobus, who's very renowned in his field. I didn't know until much later that he is the director of cardiac research for UCLA. He's the professor of cardiology at the UCLA Geffen Medical School. And he's also the chief surgeon at Ronald Reagan for cardiology.
Oh, so that's where it's all happening out there.
It's where it's all happening. And he treated me like you and I are sitting here talking. Or if you're in your living room watching this, or in your kitchen, just sitting back, relaxing, talking to the average Joe. There was no airs about him. He was down to earth. And in the 2.5-week period, I was able to accumulate every report that was ever done on me since 1991. Every film, every disc, everything that was ever done. And I took it with me to UCLA. Mm-hmm. And after a preliminary introduction and meeting with him at his office, he said to me, "Come on, let's go to my computer." And I said, okay. So he took me to his private office, and he threw a couple discs in. And he started looking, and he saw, that's your heart. This is what's going on. This is what's happening. And he said, why would anybody tell you you need a heart transplant? And I said, what do you mean? I was told by the doctor where I lived, you know, I should be put on a transplant. He said, why change the motor when all that's wrong is your arteries? Your heart is strong. A little bit of damage over the years from 9 heart attacks. But your heart is fine. Why change the motor? It's your wiring system that's messed up.
Exactly.
And he said to me, would you be comfortable enough for me to go in and check you out? I said, well, I have not too many choices, Dr. Tobis. Guy told me 2 to 5 years. Oh, forget what he said. I said, really? He said, yeah, you're not going that quickly. I said, when do you want to do it? He said, next Friday. I said, next Friday? He said, yeah, I want you back here next Friday morning, and I want to go in, and I want to do some research and check something out for you, see what's happening. So sure enough, I showed up that Friday, and he did an exploratory. He gave me 600 milligrams of Plavix. And if anybody in your listening audience knows that they take 75 milligrams of Plavix, 600 is dangerous. It thins the blood so thin, I even questioned, I said, why 600? He said that Plavix works within 45 minutes to an hour where it peaks. And if I'm going in to check out your arteries, because I can get an instrument in there, if I find any blockages, maybe I can poke at them, and because your blood will be so thin, it'll be like opening the Hoover Dam.
Wow.
And I said, okay, you're the boss. I'm laying on a gurney. At this point, I've got my life in your hands. Do what you think. And he went in, checked me out. He did find a blockage nobody else saw, cleaned it on the right side. And after the procedure was over, he sat down and talked to me, and he said to me, Marty, your left side is gone. Your left side is shot. There's not much we can do instrument-wise to get in there. I can't put a stent in. I can't fit, obviously no bypass whatsoever. And are you willing to do some research? You have nothing to lose. If we can get you approved, I would like to attempt to put you in a special double-blind study research program.
So this is where the 112 comes in.
It's where the 112 comes in. He explained to me that I would get a tablet, and I would have to download all the angina attacks I get throughout the day and the weeks. And then they would upload it at night and send it to Baxter Laboratories. And that went on for about 3.5 months. He had told me that the study was 444 patients, if I would be approved. So far at UCLA, they had no one approved at all by Baxter Laboratories after over 1,000 patients. And they were very skeptical that I would even be approved, but doctor made a little wink of his eye, and he said, Marty, I got a hunch, just a hunch. I think you're going to be the one that we're going to use. And I said, doctor, whatever you think, I'm willing to do. Because right now I have no choice. I'm at wit's end.
Yeah.
And where do we go from here? So we did that for 3.5 months. And I got a phone call, because I was back and forth to UCLA several times, getting checked out with a stress test, seeing if I was improving. and was it really occurring as often as it was, which it was. All the documents they got from me off the computer, the tablet, informing them of everything was accurate. And my stress tests were getting worse and worse and worse. They weren't induced stress tests. They weren't thallium stress tests. They were just get on a treadmill, do as best you can. We've got your blood pressure, and we've got your heart rate and everything, and you're wired up like, you know, ready to go to NASA, to the moon, and see what would happen. And then 3.5 months later, they got the nod that I was the first patient approved at UCLA after 1,000 or more people.
And this is when they cut it down to that number?
No. They left it at 444 patients. The way it broke down was 222 were supposed to get the real thing on a double-blind study. And 111 were going to get the placebo, and 111 were strictly observation patients to be going back and forth to their medical center just to be checked and watched carefully. And I got the nod for the real thing based on the 222 patients originally. And I was called to UCLA, and they said to expect me to stay for about 3 weeks to 4 weeks. And I said, okay, I could do that. And they made sure I stayed at the Tiverton House, which is a nonprofit hotel on the fringe of UCLA, where all the patients go, or families go to stay while patients are either in the hospital with medical issues. And I did that. I checked in and started the, you know, next 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks of daily stress testing and all that fun stuff. And it wasn't a joyride.
Imagine. They made you work for it. Yeah.
Well, yeah, they did. They started injecting my stomach with a serum, and it was experimental. It was a 5-day experimental procedure. And what they were to do was take the white cell count, which runs between 9 and 10,000 in a normal human. They wanted to get to 64,000. And what they were doing was injecting me with this experimental serum, which would basically let my bone marrow secrete white cells.
All right. We're going to come back to this next week because there's more to the story. So thank you for watching. We'll be back in the next segment.
Community Viewpoint.